Yo, yo, yo. What's good? What's good? It's Stormy B Man, and I am back. Welcoming you to Kung Fu Film Focus for this Thursday, October 19th, 2023. And we are back with a review and a discussion of another classic Kung Fu film joint from 1980. The film in question is The Buddhist Fist, a Kung Fu film that was presented by Peace Film Production Company, which was a independent film company under the umbrella of a larger film company out of Hong Kong, Golden Harvest. The Buddhist Fist was a film that was written, produced, and directed by Yuen Wu-ping and his brothers, and offered a tremendous, memorable aspect of martial choreography for the genre. At the time, these were films being made by these gentlemen that were at the peak of their powers in their martial ability, as well as the concepts behind fight scenes. The stories of films like this were minuscule in comparison to what they wanted to show you with the martial skill of the actors. The cast is headed up by Choi Siu-ming, Yuan Sheng-yi, Fan Mei-sheng, Simon Yuan Su-tien, Lee Hoi-san, Peter Chan Long, Ho Pak Kwan, Yuen Yat Chor, Yuen Chung Yan, and Ho Ten Shing. All of these men are familiar to audiences for their contributions both in front and behind the cameras. And those names that you heard me call off, Yuen, those were all brothers under the father, Simon Yuen. Simon Yuen, you would remember him as the old drunken master from Jackie Chan's films Snake in the Eagle's Shadow and Drunk Monkey in the Tiger's Eye, also known as Drunken Master. This just lets you know the talent. Now, like I said, Papa Simon Yuen had 4 sons who contributed to this film. Yuen Wu Ping, who was the oldest and elder brother, and we're talking about actual, DNA, blood relating brother, he directed the film and headed up the choreography, but was assisted by his brothers. This was a film that Peace Film Production Company headed up, and they did 5 other films in the early to mid 80s. The Buddhist Fist was the first that they brought out. It was soon followed up by Dreadnought, which was released by Golden Harvest, but a very popular classic martial art film that starred Yuen Biao, who was no relation to the rest of the Yuen clan, just had the common name Yuen. Also, a nice little gem called The Postman Strikes Back, which was released in 1982, followed by The Miracle Fighters, also released in 82, and then in 1985 they released Mismatched Couples. Now, Peace Film Production Company, most of their films were headed up by Yuen Wu Ping. He was the founder of the company, and his brothers typically contributed to these films and their productions, whether it was both in front of the camera as well as behind the camera, coordinating stories as well as the choreography that the films called for. These men were so dynamic in their contributions that later Warner Brothers would hire the Yuen clan to assist with the action choreography of the film The Matrix, headed up by then the Wachowskis. The rest is history. I don't think I know a person that didn't enjoy The Matrix or the martial action that the film depicted. So it just gives you a sense of the talent that was behind the camera and the choreography. Tremendous things that we were presented at the time, and I don't know that history will repeat itself when it comes down to the talent that worked throughout the 70s and 80s producing martial arts action and films. This film also had a bit of comedy, which at the time when it was initially released and I saw it, I wasn't high on it. I didn't like a lot of the comedy kung fu films. Because I followed Bruce Lee so closely, I wanted my kung fu films serious. But they later grew on me as I began to get through a maturation process myself and recognize that I could still enjoy these films, especially from the aspect of the talent that participated in they being made. Quite similarly, I later learned to follow films, and though they were subtitled, I began to allow myself to relax, read the subs, follow the action, and now I'm at a point where I can watch a subtitled film and not miss too much of anything. But there was a time when it was difficult to try to keep up with what was being written on the screen and what you were watching on the screen as far as action. But that all comes down to motor skills. Believe it or not, you can train yourself to speed up the process of how you receive the information or slow the information down. But it takes and requires practice. It's one of those things that, again, don't knock it until you've tried it. And once you've tried it, you have to become a part of that process. You don't just look at it and skim through it a couple of times and be like, oh no, this is not for me. Because believe you me, it took me a great deal longer period of time than that to get to that point. So it's one of those things that I encourage people. And like I said, I can watch subtitle films from any part of the world. They could be in foreign languages, being translated into English. I can follow them just fine. Whether it's French film, whether it's something that's German or Russian or Japanese, I can follow. The Buddhist Fist, a film that, again, as I stated a moment ago, starred Choi Siu-ming and Yuen Sheng-yi, Yuen Wu-ping's second brother. They were the main stars of this film. And they came out as two young kids who grew up together, learning from one another. One aspired to be a barber. The other had been trained in the monk temple where he was taken as an infant. So as they met as little boys, they were both dealing with some conflict, and they saved one another from bullies trying to bully them and things of that nature, and they formed a bond. And as they grew to men, they hadn't seen each other for a long time, but they did somewhat keep in touch. But their paths would grow apart greater than either of them could ever dream. As the barber, Yuen Sheng-yi worked and found himself in situations where he ended up in fights as a young adult. And his blood brother, Choi Siu-ming, the monk, though he served at the temple, he developed a reputation at the temple as being a rebel. He didn't follow rules and instructions well. He had somewhat of a decency about himself, but he began to walk on the wild side. And that's always an interesting aspect, because he becomes like an anti-hero. Not necessarily a bad guy 100%, but definitely not a good guy 100%. There's a moment in the film where he sees some women in the temple praying, and he's looking over at them, and he starts to have these lustful thoughts for the girls. And that's the bad side that they were showing you about him. Yes, he's a monk. Yes, he prays and everything. Yes, he can fight. But you don't know if he's going to just take one of those girls by force or not. Yeah, it's that serious. But at the same time, it's that funny. And that's how they presented this film. It was something subtle, because in those days and times, subtlety was the way that information was conveyed. You had to be a little sharp to catch what they were trying to convey. And it wasn't hard. If you've watched enough of these films, you begin to learn exactly what's going on. So that's one of the things that I remember about this film very well. As I talked about the cast, another character that was a part of this film was Lee Hoi-san. Now, if you guys have seen Lee Hoi-san, typically he plays a baddie in films. He has played many monk-like characters himself with a shaved head. He is well known in real life to be a practitioner of Wing Chun Kung Fu. And in these films, this film in particular, he's playing a baddie that has an interesting nickname. Now, I'm trying to look and see if they put it in the credits for. Okay, they didn't put it in the credits for where I looked up the all of the cast and crew. But in the English version of the film, they call him Big Littlefoot or something like that, because he has 2 feet that look different sizes. Basically, it's an old camera trick with the type of shoes they put on his feet. But he had 1 big foot and 1 little foot. And he was a killer. And he was a well-known man in town. But he was definitely a dirty guy. The fighting in this film is top-notch. Choi Soo-ming, the monk, is a practitioner of what they call the Buddhist fist in this film. And his buddy, childhood friend, Yuen Shu Yi, who plays Ah Shang, he is a practitioner of Kung Fu himself, and he learned a little bit of Buddhist fist from his friend as they were growing up, but not the total skill set that his friend developed. And then his friend also became like a hired killer. So Ah Shang did not try to kill people when he fought them, but he relished beating them up. A cameo by the dad is what really excited audiences when the film first came out. Simon Ewan playing a monk in a temple that was guarding a jade piece. And when Su Ming came to the temple to steal the piece, he was dressed like a ninja, had his face covered up so nobody could recognize him or whatever. But Simon Ewan's character, who was an elder monk, knew he was a monk himself. He wounded him to a degree that they could try to track the guy down if they ever caught him without a shirt on or something. And that was the backdrop of this particular story. Su Ming was a dirty guy. He was a hired killer. He enjoyed being dirty. And he was one of those renegade monks that kind of relished himself being walking on the wild side. Ah Shang, which was Yuen Shin Yi, he was more prideful in taking care of the weak, taking care of bullies, and overall just going after, people who made others suffer. The cast, I said again, is rounded out by Fan Mei Sheng. Fan Mei Sheng is a veteran actor and was noted for his rotund figure and goatee and beard. If many of you watched Shaw Brothers films in the early 70s, you would often see him as a co-starring role player in their films. My favorite role of him was in the film The Water Margin, aka Seven Blows of the Dragon, where he played Black Whirlwind, the guy that carried 2 big axes and he was dressed in black, and he always liked to fight, and he always, he wasn't the smartest guy, but if you ever went into battle, you would want Black Whirlwind by your side. I'm telling you, he was awesome. Also, Chen Long. Chen Long is a famous actor, choreographer, and part director who came along in the era of the early 70s with Sammo Hung and Jackie Chan and worked with them almost religiously. He also headed up the stunt team by Jackie. He worked on Bruce Lee's Hong Kong films, and he was a noted guy for coming up with certain concepts in fighting. He lasted until 2021. He passed away, but Chen Long was really noted for his contributions behind the camera and with choreography for the early 70s and mid 70s, and later became noted for some of his comedic roles where he just was a guy that didn't fight on screen as much, but he could still do everything the other guys were doing. One of the things about this film, The Buddhist Fist, was also the fact that the actors that played in here, none of them were like movie star looks. They were average to regular looking dudes. And for Yuen Wu-Ping to give these men an opportunity to shine in a production like this, it wasn't so much about him trying to find a new star or make any of them a star, but to showcase their martial abilities. When Bruce Lee passed away in 1973, studios sought out different actors, different martial artists to turn into actors. And it just didn't seem to pan out to find guys who could do it for real and then act at the same time. Yuen Wu-Ping was smart enough to know that you could take a real martial artist, put him in a role, you give him little to say but plenty to do. And that's what he did with his guys. And you saw the results. There were stars like Tan Tao Lang. There were stars like Dan Wang Tao. There were stars like John Liu. There were stars like Wang Qing Li. He choreographed fight scenes for all of those guys in movies throughout the mid 70s and early 80s. And a lot of those films are looked at as classics of today. Very much so. Let me take a moment to go out to the chat and see who we got in the building. Says we got a few folks out here. Blessings to everybody that's out there, man. I'm glad you guys decided to check in with Stormy this evening. Let me know what you're thinking about The Buddhist Fist. And have you seen The Buddhist Fist? Because if you haven't, I recommend it. It's a film that has heavy action, not a lot of story, but the martial choreography in this film is excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. We got Yahweh No Smoke TV in the building saying, Sensei, Shogun, the Shogun of Harlem, is in the building. 76 saying, salute my Kung Fu people. Shamar Rashawn Shalom is in the building saying, salute to the Sensei. Soul Power, aka Gamed Up Kennels, is in the building saying, peace and blessings, Sensei. Right back at you. 704 Joe is in the building saying peace, flawless mentality, and black excellence. Hosted by Dr. Mark is in the building saying salute to the God, the Sensei Stormy B-Man, my brother of elevation, fam, and the gods and beautiful goddesses of the mighty LDBC Kung Fu Film family. Yes, sir, that's a mouthful. Champion Heart is back with us saying salute to Sensei, Stormy, and chat. Yes, Brother Code is out there saying salute Sensei. Right back at you. And you guys are saluting each other as well. Anybody got any questions for me on this classic Buddhist fist. It's available on YouTube if you haven't seen it. And I recommend it because it's a different type of kung fu film. Like I said, some of you might not be used to the guys that you see starring in this film, because to be perfectly honest, outside of Fang Mei Shing and Li Hoi San, most of these guys were doubling for real actors and actresses sometimes in martial art films. Their abilities are top notch. Yuan Sheng Yi, who's pictured at the top above the bald-headed Choi Su Ming, he was a tremendous stuntman as well as action choreographer, and he doubled for some people throughout the early 70s and mid 70s. He started to gain more roles and be in front of the camera after he showed some acting ability. When he starred in Dreadnought, it opens up where he and his wife are bandits on the run, and they stop by this one little inn to get some food and drink. And of course, you know, when you have those little tea house inns, there's going to be a fight. That's a tradition in kung fu films. If you stop in a tea house, there's got to be a fight. And that film opens up with him and his wife stopping in that tea house, and it turns out that there's a bunch of lawmen in the tea house that were laying in wait for them, trying to capture or kill them. And it's a great opening scene. The film is Dreadnought. Great film. You guys got to check Dreadnought out. I actually did do a kung fu film focus on Dreadnought, so you got to check it out. Champion Heart says, I don't think I've seen the Buddhist fist. You got to check it out. There was another film called The Buddha Assassinator, which was made with Meng Hoi. Meng Hoi is a young guy that in the early 70s, he played a little boy martial artist in films. One of the films he was in was Fist of the Unicorn, aka Bruce Lee and I. He was in some other films like Golden Harvest films. One of the films that's widely known is Enter the Dragon. When Bruce Lee is on the boat and he makes the Australian guy get into that little sampan and said we could go fight on that island on the beach, and the guy, he tricks him and he gets in the boat and he lets the rope loose so the boat goes away into the waters, and the little boy that Bruce Lee taps on the head to hold the rope, that's Meng Hoi when he was a little boy. But he grew up and by the mid to late 70s, he was able to star in martial roles himself. And so he's in The Buddha Assassinator with Wang Ching Li, and he's doing some hellified fighting in that movie, man. He's throwing down in there, Meng Hoi. Very good martial artist as a young boy that became a man, grew up on screen before our eyes. Yeah. Shamar says, question, Sensei, how do you feel about the film The Five Deadly Venoms? My favorite ever. Listen, Shamar, I'm going to do a review on that film because, you know, a second review. I've already done a review on Five Venoms. It's one of my most viewed kung fu film focuses. I think it probably has over 50,000 views or something. And I did that before my channel was monetized. So that's why I said I think I'll do a second review of it. But it's a classic Shaw Brothers film, and it's very popular. You know why it's so popular, I feel? I think The Five Venoms is very popular because they were depicted as specialists. Each man had a specific style. They trained earnestly in those styles. They all trained under the same sifu, but they didn't know each other because they wore masks while they were training. And the scorpion, the centipede, the snake, the toad, and what was the last one? The Lizard. So when you had those guys, you know, they were excellent. I think the film is okay. It's not the best kung fu film, but it's popular, and I think it had a superhero type sentiment to it way before we got the Avengers and all of that stuff. And that's why people really tapped into that, because each of those skill sets that each martial artist had, they were hyped up with special effects. The very fast hands, the walking on the walls, the snake style, the centipede, the toad, all of those styles made for something really special with these guys. So my thoughts about it is, it's a good film. Is it the best? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. One of the films that I consider the best ever was a film that was also choreographed by Yuen Wu-Ping and directed by Yuen Wu-Ping, and that's called Legend of a Fighter, a film I did cover here on Kung Fu Film Focus. So if you go back in my archives, you'll find Legend of a Fighter, Kung Fu Film Focus, Legend of a Fighter. That film starred Liang Jiaren, playing, also known as Beardy, named by the European market as Beardy. He plays the young Fuck Yum Gap, which is Ho Yun Chow, the teacher or seafood that Bruce Lee avenges in Chinese Connection, aka Fist of Fury. So that's one of the best kung fu films of all time. Also starring Yosaki Kurata from Japan, also from the Japanese action team of Sonny Chiba. And Kurata has played in numerous Hong Kong films, but he and Liang Jiaren in that film, it's a great martial art film. It's a great story, and damn does it have great kung fu action in it. That's one of the best kung fu films I've ever seen. Highly recommend it, and it's got to easily be in my top 5 of kung fu films of all time. My personal top 10. I'm top 5, excuse me. But yeah, those are my my thoughts on that, Shamar. But thank you for your question. Shogun of Harlem says, if you love kung fu films, this is a great one. Yeah, Shogun, do you remember that end fight sequence where Choi Soo-ming and Yuan Sheng-yi are fighting, and Choi Soo-ming, dressed in his black kung fu outfit, when he breaks down and he starts doing these hand styles and everything, and he goes, foo, 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 he does all that and then does a split and come back. Man, them dudes was throwing down in this film. It was exciting. It was great choreography. And man, did they look like they were pros. They knew exactly what they were doing, man. That was a damn good fight scene between them at the end of the film. But you're right, Shogun of Harlem. He says, if you love kung fu films, this is a great one. Yeah. Mind of Mansa Musa is in the building saying, salute Sensei 100. Yes, sir. There's Shogun saying that last fight scene, amazing. See, I hadn't even read your comment yet, but I was just talking about it because it got me so fired up. When I was watching the movie, I was like, man, I like to put it on just to watch that final fight scene, because it is just that damn good. Awesome, bro. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Flawless Mentality. Dr. Mark says, I haven't seen the Buddhist Fist, but I might watch it tonight. Dr. Mark, do yourself a favor, watch it, and don't go to sleep until you watch the final fight scene. Golly, I'm telling you, that is something. Brother Cole says, that was a classic scene. The art of fighting without fighting. Who are you talking about? Enter the Dragon, when Bruce Lee put the Australian on the sampan. Yeah, that was funny, man. Geo James Khalil is in the building. Where you been? He says, salute. Right back at you. Shamar is saying, I gotta check it out. 704 Joe says, I think Saturday morning Black Belt Theater was a lot of people introduction to Kung Fu flicks. They ran the hell out of Five Deadly Venoms. Yeah, they did, because that was one of the ones that was easy to get the ratings for the very reasons of which I spoke. But that doesn't mean that that was the best of those films. I just watched a movie last night, The Water Margin, which I haven't done, by the way, aka Seven Blows of the Dragon. That is one of Shaw Brothers' best films. It's based on a novel, The Water Margin, about the 108 heroes in Chinese folklore. They were all bandits that rebelled against the emperor and the dynasty. So The Water Margin is a great film, kind of along a Hong Kong epic, because it has an ensemble cast. Everybody who was a who's who of Shaw Brothers Studios played in that film. And I'll tell you something. When it was released in the US, it was redubbed and cut. So the cut, edited down version is like an hour and a half, 90 minutes. But the film is actually about 110, 120 minutes. But I'll tell you something, man. The edited down version is really nice because it has the familiar sound effects, like from Enter the Dragon, the bashing sounds when you punch and kick or whatever. But the music is really good. They wrote music for that film specifically and its US release and gave it a great US dub. Seven Blows of the Dragon is what The Water Margin is known as. But I'll tell you something. If you watch The Water Margin, the original version of the film that's uncut, it's not in English at all. There's not an English dub for the full 100+ minute movie. But it's so much better than the U.S. version of it. It's just the U.S. version is so familiar. And that's what you came to know of, because when it first got its release here in America. But I love the music and everything from Seven Blows. But the Water Margin film itself is best. And it has a sequel called All Men Are Brothers. And I have to do a review on both films, because All Men Are Brothers has one of the craziest finales, and most of the 108 heroes get wiped out. Now, you saw how good they were in Seven Blows of the Dragon, right? But in the sequel, All Men Are Brothers, man, some of your favorites from the first film, they don't make it to the end. I'm telling you, it's a great movie, man. A great movie. Yeah. Shamar says, Seven Blows was crazy. Champion Heart says, yep, Seven Blows of the Dragon was badass. Yes, sir. Yes, it was. I'm telling you, man, listen. I can talk about these Kung Fu movies, man, for hours. It's just what I really love. And I like the fact that the audience for these reviews is growing and growing. Some of you guys don't come in when the show is live, like right now. But I'll look back a few days later and it'd be like 500, 600, 700 views. I'll be like, where was y'all at when I was live? But people like Kung Fu like that, man. And it's funny because I don't know if it's like if it's like a shy thing. People are shy to come out of the woodwork and be like, hell yeah, I love Kung Fu. But man, it's something that's part of culture, man. We talk about this, you know. Allow yourself to enjoy it, you know. Allow yourself to enjoy it, man. Don't sleep on this stuff, or don't hide your love for it, because it's amazing, man. It's amazing. I got a bundle of Shaw Brothers films in the mail just a couple of days ago, and I'm like, woo! Stormy is about to have him a good old time with some Kung Fu. And since they started releasing these films now on Blu-ray, they look even better, that they cleaned them up with 2K restorations and everything. And you know, of course there's 4K restorations, but for these Kung Fu films, they don't need to be in 4K. 2K makes them look just excellent. They really do. But I was going to take a moment out and show you guys one of the trailers for this film. And when I show it to you, I'm going to just call out fair use for this. Fair use, fair use. And let's check out some of Buddhist Fist. Fair use.
The latest and the finest production from Peace Film Production Company. The Buddhist Fist. Buddhist palm. Buddhist fist. World-famous Kung Fu film director Yuen Wu-Ping, who developed all the classical elements of Kung Fu in such masterpieces as Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, Drunken Master, and The Magnificent Butcher, now presents this innovative film, The Buddhist Fist. The first disclosure of the vampire claw. The meteor. A new approach to the art of Kung Fu. The Buddhist Fist. Guest stars, Fan Mui Sung, special guest star, Simon Yuen, who performs the unique Kung Fu speciality of his family.
Fair use. See, that's the dad, Simon Yuen.
Starring the new Kung Fu stars, Yuen Shun-yi and Choi Siu-ming.
But it's too late.
Showing you the spectacular Buddhist fist for the first time on the screen. The Sleeping Buddha. Return to Buddha, performed by pulling your own weight against your enemy. Conquering the devil. The Buddhist Fist. Co-starring Yuen Chung-yan, Yuen Chung-wai, Lee Hoi-sung, Chan Lung, and Tong Ching. The Buddhist Fist. Producer and director Yuen Wu-ping. Another production from the Peace Film Company, coming soon to this theater.
Yo, that movie is sick, bro. I'm telling you. Fair use again, fair use. But that film, it's just amazing, man. It's an amazing kung fu film. If you guys haven't checked it out, you got to check it out, man. You saw that. Most of that was like, they were showing you a lot of the fights from the final fight scene in the film, but it's crazy. It is crazy. Yep. Champion Heart says, yep, I got a friend of mine downloading some Kung Fu classics on a USB drive right now. Yeah, that's nice to be able to download that stuff, but man, I like the physical media. I got my hundreds of Kung Fu over here, and the only way I'm parting is, you know, if I go down, they going down with me. But man, it's great to watch these joints, man. Great to watch the Kung Fu films. Big time, big time. Shogun says the fortune teller was giving him the business too. Yeah. Learn is in the building. What's going on with you, man? He says, salute, sensei. Salute right back at you, man. Right back at you. Yeah, man. But that's what I do. You know, I check these films, man. I like to come on here and talk about them with you guys. But I just don't get enough of that live action support. But you guys will come in later. I don't know what that is, what that's about. But y'all do that on a regular. I mean, I look back. I'm looking back in my queue right now. A couple weeks ago when I did Hapkido, we didn't have that many people in the live stream for Hapkido. But where is it? I'm trying to pull it up now. Hold on. Oh, I'm looking in the wrong thing. I was looking on the videos. I'm trying to look on the live streams. Yeah, a couple weeks ago when I did Hapkido, I only had like 20 people tops watching that show. Man, that thing is going on almost 800 views. So it's people out here that watch these Kung Fu joints, man. Why they won't just come on in the building and share with us live, I have no idea, man. But that is absolutely insane to have that type of viewership, but the people don't come around when it's live. And I loaded this up in the queue that this would be live tonight like a week ago. So some of you I saw was waiting. It was like 4 people waiting before I went live. But it just goes to show how fickle people are, man. Huh? What is it about Stormy that these folks won't come on in here and enjoy this good stuff live with me, man? What is that? Can you guys give me some kind of a feedback on that and let me know what your thoughts are? Because 2 weeks ago, you know, Hapkido only had like 20 people in the damn chat, you know, or whatever. Now it's over almost 800 views. I don't know, man. It befuddles me. It befuddles me. Nobody can answer that for me? I thought I'd get an answer out of you guys. You just be sitting there sometimes. If I could reach out in the audience and be smacking you guys upside the head, I'll be doing that Bruce Lee from Enter the Dragon. Do you not hear me talking to you? Answer the question. Be sitting there like, do. The sensei talking, but he ain't talking to me. I'm like, yeah, you. Well, you know what, Game Dub Kennels, I can understand that, but dude, everybody, it ain't 800 people working. You understand? It ain't, because that's people who like kung fu movies, bro. That is what that is. Cause I get views on that like better than I get on some of my boxing content, which I'm not even upset about it. I'm just trying to figure it out. Like, you mean it's like 700 people that don't rock with Stormy, but they'll watch his kung fu joints like in a heartbeat. There's something really strange about that, bro. It's something really strange. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Shamar says, I don't know, Sensei. I'm always here, so they fools. Yeah. Soul Power says, being a truck driver, some weeks I drive during the day, others at night. And I can understand that, Soul Power. Listen, this is one of those kind of things, like, if it don't apply to you, bro, don't take it, as don't take it personally. Don't digest that as such. I just be trying to get the people to have a good time with these shows, recollecting these screen gems. That's all I be trying to do. Yeah, I got you, Soul Power. I got you. And I appreciate it, I know my man Shogun always show up for the kung fu joints. Not the boxing so much, but the brother be in here for the kung fu joints, and I really appreciate that, because I can tell who my kung fu folk are, And I've tried to encourage to share it too. Share it to Facebook, share it to Instagram, share the shows to Twitter. Wherever you could share them so more people become aware. Dude, there's tons of kung fu film followers out there. Tons of them. I mean, they're in the hundreds of thousands, to be perfectly honest with you. They're in the multitudes. Yeah. That's like, I'm gonna look right now. We were talking about the 5 Venoms, and I did that show a while back, but I'm getting ready to look and see. Let's see, Kung Fu Film Focus. Let's see here. I'm looking through my library right now. Yeah, I did Dreadnought, which I was talking about with Yuan Shin Yi back in March of 2020. Let's see here. I did The Secret Rivals Part 1 already. That was done back in September of 2019. I did King Boxer, which is 5 Fingers of Death, in March of 2020. It says I've done over 78 of these shows. Can you guys believe that? Stormy been out here cooking on these kung fu films, and you guys ain't all been here. I know that. I know you ain't all been here. No, you know what? I said I had did the 5 Venoms, but I didn't do the 5 Venoms. I did the 5 Element Ninjas. So I can still do the 5 Venoms for you guys. The 5 Element Ninjas, that Kung Fu film focus has 175,000 views. 175,000 views for 5 Element Ninjas. Can you guys believe that? Okay, Shamar. But you know what? No, because it's easy to do Shaw films because those are the most seen films. Shaw's had more movie houses to showcase their films than any other production company. They had a monopoly on the industry because even when the films showed internationally, they were shown at usually a Shaw-owned theater, even if it was in the U.S. But I try to cover the independent films as well as the less known films that were still really good. And that just helps you to know my my knowledge of the films, you know. Yeah, but the Super Kung Fu film, the Super Kung Fu Kid, which is also known as Karate the Hong Kong Cat. Once Upon a Time in China, the Chinese Mac. And I did a Kung Fu film focus on Jimmy Wang Yu. And I think that was before he passed away. Learn is asking, which one works best? One channel that focuses on one thing or one channel that focuses on multiple things. I personally like the one channel that focuses on multiple things, one-stop shop. Well, the point of it, learn, is this. My knowledge of both my boxing and the Kung Fu films run similarly in depth. But not only that, I can marry the elements of the two subjects because we talk about the combative arts and things of that nature. So you see there is a symmetry there, even though I separate them. But at the end of the day, it just shows again the depth that where I can go. I don't talk about the things I don't know about, but I'll listen and learn about things I don't know about, which is why I find myself on the YouTube a lot, checking out people's content. And like I said, sometimes I be out there, y'all don't even know I be out there, but I be listening, I be tuning in, you know. And I do that on purpose and by design, because so many people do that to me. But I know. Learn is saying, but does it mess with the algorithm? No, it don't mess with the algorithm, because look at it like this. I do basically 5 to 6 shows a week, live streams. 2 of them have nothing to do with boxing. That's Nerds on Culture on Monday, and typically every once in a while, couple times a month, you get the Kung Fu Film Focus. So my algorithms are high in boxing content. Those are the choices of the people. So yeah, that's pretty much what that is, man. You guys have I told you don't know how I work for you. Even though I had the show scheduled for tonight, it wasn't until about 40 minutes before going live that I put my images together for tonight's show, including that trailer that I shared with you. So all of that was done just 40 minutes before going live. But you see how detailed I try to be for you guys? I put that work in, man. I just want people to recognize that. Yeah, Drew and I did a 3-part segment on Chuck Norris on Nerds on Culture. You can go on my archives of Nerds on Culture, Chuck Norris. We did 3 shows on him. We did the martial artist, the action guy, and the cop. You know, it was like we broke him up into 3 segments. And those were some of my highest viewed Nerds on Cultures. People like Chuck Norris, man. They love the dude. And I think we did him justice when we talked about him. You know? But yeah, and see, that's the thing, you guys. Because I'm going to start taking the stuff down out of the archives and making it private or whatever. But that's a great way to bring yourself up to speed. And you recognize I've been doing this stuff for 4 years, man. 4 years. I haven't had anything go viral yet. But if people participated like they should, it would been going viral. I don't know if it's somebody trying to suppress that or what. But hey, it's not going to stop me from doing what I do. It's not going to stop me. The only thing that'll stop me from doing this is when the good man upstairs take my breath out my body and I can't do it no more. That's it. But I'm going to get ready to get out of here. I appreciate everybody that came out. That's my little hour for this show. And we're going to get out of here and we'll be back soon. I'm not sure when, with another Kung Fu film focus. But you guys can email me recommendations and I'll take everything into consideration. Because that's what it's about. You participate and I participate. And together we'll come up with something great. Yeah. But until the next time, peace to you guys. Shout out to the mighty LDBC. We'll catch you on the next one.